If you have stumbled upon this podcast, it's not by chance. I'm Alex, and I'm so excited for you to join me in each episode as I dive headfirst into the highs, lows, and utterly wild twists of my life. I take you on my journey to feeling fully aligned and unapologetically myself. I'm here to show you that everything in life happens for a reason and nothing is by chance. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to Not By Chance, episode 10. We have hit the decade. I'm actually a little bit nervous for this episode for a couple of reasons. And number one being, I actually haven't created much content lately. I took a little bit of time off, mainly because I am very much building the back end of my business and I've decided to go all in on my coaching business, as I've kind of given the little updates in each episode, but I'm committing to it now, and I have been building out the back end of the coaching business, putting together all of the framework I've been developing for a while now, and basically just putting it together. And I've been working with my very first client, which is very exciting for me. And I've just been doing all the things. I've been super busy with just setting up what this business looks like. Also, if you go back into past episodes, I talk about how I also do business consulting work, which is in the corporate world in my past sort of career. And I'm using that to very much support and fund my life and other goals and aspirations that I have around business and just life in general. So it's been busy. It's been really busy, and in the best way possible. I mean, again, if you go back and listen to my story, you know that the last couple of years I was undergoing cancer treatment for a breast cancer diagnosis. I'm on the other side, cancer-free. And honestly, I love this chapter that I'm in right now. It is such a fun chapter. I feel like I'm living my dream life and then building towards other dreams and other ways that I've always wanted to live. So I'm in a really fun chapter. It just feels very exciting, and the challenges that I'm facing are like challenges I'm really happy to have. Obviously, I didn't call in the challenges of cancer, even hormonal conditions that I had, even the severe PMS or PMDD. Those weren't things that I was, excited to navigate in my life, but I had to go through them, and they taught me just so much, which is what I am so excited about to use and grow this coaching business. I have been studying and educating myself on personal development, everything to do with the mind, really, for over a decade now. So the fact that I get to take all of that and put it into what feels like my baby and nurture it and grow it and build it exactly the way that I want and feel that is the best way that I can give back to the world, it's very exciting. So, and obviously the podcast is to do with this, social media, and I really love creating content. I do. However, I need to have, and it's going well with the theme of this episode, I need to have boundaries with it, and I need to do it in a way that feels exciting and nurturing to me, rather than giving it everything all the time, having no boundaries, and therefore feeling burnt out by it. That's just not the way I live my life in general, and it's certainly not the way I'm going to create content. And also, I feel like I would end up creating things like content, podcast episodes, just Instagram reels, whatever it is, that don't actually land or have any kind of, I don't know, I feel like they would be bathed in the energy of just, I don't know, putting something out there for the sake of it. And that's not what I'm about. So I feel in a really great place. I've just onboarded my first social media manager, and she is incredible already. I'm loving working with her because, again, I am learning to navigate this business in a way that I truly want to. I love being the creative director. I enjoy all things coming up with the creative concepts and getting the message out there and learning or deciding on how I want to put that message out there. But when it comes to the actual editing and the tech side and all of that, I do enjoy it, but I have so much going on in my life, putting time and energy into that feels draining right now. I enjoy it up to a certain point, so therefore I've outsourced it. So anyway, this is just a little life update before we get into the episode. But I guess, yeah, I'm in a really exciting chapter. Lots is happening and I am truly loving it. So that's where I've been. That's what I've been doing. And it has, yeah, it's slowly coming together and I'm very excited. I'm thinking that I will be launching my coaching to the public essentially later this year. And with that will come events and more podcast episodes, more content, all of the things. And it goes really well with the theme of today's episode, which is all around navigating living life on your own terms. It is what I am most passionate about. It is what I live and breathe. And the more and more that I live life on my own terms, the happier, more fulfilled, more satisfied, and in my own definition, successful I am. So, and with that comes some challenges. And that's why I wanted to do this episode. It actually came as inspiration from something that's going on in the influencer world right now. You may or may not have heard about Indy Clinton, who is suing her, well, she's going after her haters, basically. And this subject is so interesting to me. Basically, there's these gossip forums like Tattle and Reddit where people create threads about these influencers, content creators, people, these human beings, and tear them to shreds. It is honestly the most disgusting, embarrassing, awful thing I've ever seen. And from what I've dug deep into, because I find this all so interesting, anything to do with human behavior, I am so interested by. Yeah, as I said, I have studied all things human behavior, psychology for the last decade in various different ways. And I find it all so incredibly interesting. I even said to Al the other day, I even started looking into criminology at one point because I really thought that was maybe going to be a place I wanted to go. I don't think it's for me, but I love all things true crime. I like understanding fucked up human behavior. I find it really interesting and I'm like, why do people do the things that they do? If you've been following along my journey and listening to my episodes, you can see a bit of a theme around, and I know this is a bit of a buzzword these days, but trauma work. I have done a lot of trauma work in my own life and it is something I'm truly passionate about to now be helping other people with. And part of and understanding my own trauma and doing my own trauma work and working with other people in various different ways, all different types of coaches and mentors and people like that, you really start to understand how people work and why they do the things they do. And I just find it super interesting. So anyway, it gave me the inspiration for this episode because I was like, this is like 101 of why so many people don't do things in life sometimes. Even for me, sitting down, putting my life out there on episodes and recording myself, telling my story, giving you intimate details of my life, posting content on Instagram about things that are really personal to me that I want to share in the hopes that it will help somebody else. And also because it lights me up to talk about this stuff. This is stuff I'm passionate about and I feel energized by it. But then there's people out there that literally tear other people down, and on these threads and stuff, this is what I've understood of it. A lot of these people justify it as, they're doing it because they think they're calling out these people and they think that they think they're justified in it, essentially. They feel that they're justified in the way they're doing this. I'm all for calling people out, but the way that these people, it's mean girl behavior. And I'm saying girl because it is mostly women. It's just obvious. And it is just like women tearing down, or girls tearing down women who are living their life on their own terms and they just want to tear them down for whatever reasons. So I was very, very inspired by this topic because I was like, how much of my life have I lived on other people's terms? And what I mean by that is how many times in my life I stopped myself from doing something because of fear of judgment, fear of the way I might be perceived, or because it was somebody else's fear or value or belief or something that influenced me, and therefore I didn't do something. So it got me thinking about my story and my history with people pleasing, self-abandonment, and just essentially, living life on somebody else's terms. And this is what my coaching is all about. Essentially, how do you create a life that you are obsessed with and in love with, and that is on your terms? Self-discovery and self-belief are a big undertone of what I will be coaching and teaching. And it is because it has been so profound in my own life. The more that I have understood myself, the more that I have been able to believe in myself and therefore live the life of my dreams, which is what I'm living right now. And it's only getting more and more and more towards exactly what I've always wanted in my life. I'm very, very, very intentional about the way I live. And I believe that the more we are intentional and self-aware, the happier, more fulfilled and satisfied we are. I'm going to start with explaining something that was like a catalyst moment for me in my people pleasing, having boundaries, living life on other people's terms journey, basically. And it was when, I'd always been working on external validation and boundaries and people pleasing. I was a chronic people pleaser growing up. My sweet dear mother was also a chronic people pleaser, so I learnt those patterns from her. She didn't know any better, she wasn't taught any better, but I grew up self-sacrificing a lot. And also, and I'm going to call this out, and some people may or may not like this or feel comfortable with this, but people pleasing is actually, I used to have this identity that I'm a giver, that I'm so giving, I'm so generous, and that's my identity, and therefore I'm liked because I'm a giver and I'm generous. Self-sacrificing as your identity is not a good thing. It doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean you're a better person. It's actually a fast way to being miserable in your life and therefore showing up in other people's lives in a not great way either. If you think that you're giving and you're constantly leaking energy, you're constantly giving to situations, people, or circumstances that actually you really do not want to be, or it's not aligned, or whatever the case is, you end up not really showing up in life in the best way. From the way that you treat people to the way you treat yourself. And that is why this subject for me is so close to my heart, because the more that I have learnt boundaries and broken through people-pleasing patterns and gotten to the core of the beliefs that rule all of this for me, the better I've become. The better I treat people, the better I communicate, the better I show up for other people, the better I show up for myself. So I really do think this is like the crux and the catalyst for a lot of people's unhappiness in life and feeling unsatisfied and feeling unfulfilled. So for me, learning what I'm about to share was such a catalyst moment of where I was like, holy shit, I didn't know this. This is not something I was ever taught growing up. This was not something my parents were ever taught. Nobody around me was taught anything like this. And when I learned it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. So basically, it's a framework, a coaching framework, and it comes in different forms, shapes, and sizes. I'm going to reference what I know of it, which is called the boundary wheel. And a shout out to Natalia, my kinesiologist and coach at the time, who taught me this, and we implemented in my life. And I was just like, whoa, the changes in my life were just profound. And it was the peace of mind that I developed from this framework. It's going to be a pivotal part of the framework that I coach. And it's just something I'm truly passionate about. So the boundary wheel is essentially a self-reflection framework that helps you get clear on your own needs, limits, and expectations especially if you've spent a lot of your life on other people's terms. The wheel is broken into different parts: your non-negotiables, your needs, your flexible preferences, and your off-limits. And by mapping these out across different areas of your life, like work, family, friendships, romantic relationships, and even how you treat yourself, you start to see where you've been abandoning yourself, overextending, and staying silent out of fear of judgment or rejection. The exercise is so powerful for people pleasers or those who struggle to say no, because it shows you visually and emotionally where your boundaries need strengthening, not from a place of punishment, but from a place of self-respect. And what I love most is that it shifts you from reaction or being unconscious to being intentional and conscious about the way you're living, showing up in relationships, how you want to be treated, how you treat others. It really is a beautiful exercise to just become super aware of some things and self-reflect, and then create an action plan, really, of how you want to move through the world and how you want the world to move with you. I mean, I can't even really put into words how profound it's been in my life. It really is something I'm truly passionate about because I was such a people pleaser. So to go into how this would show up in my life, because people say people pleaser all the time, and it's like, what is that? What the fuck is a people pleaser? For me, it showed up in so many different ways, like overextending myself. I wouldn't say no to things, even if I wanted to. Even if deep in my soul, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do, I would say yes, because I was so afraid of feeling bad or feeling guilt or disappointing someone or not being seen as fun or FOMO. Even though I knew it wasn't aligned, or maybe I didn't even know at the time that it wasn't aligned. That really didn't come until the self-discovery phases of my life, like that I really went all in on self-discovery. But it just like, I had the nudge of like, I don't really want to do this, but I would push through and do it. And I'm not talking about where that's something where you're afraid to give it a go and you need to push through. I'm talking about like you genuinely do not want to do this. And then I would also just say yes to so many things and people. And that even blended into my finances and my money. So I would spend money on things that I really shouldn't have been spending on, or didn't even have the funds available to be doing that, and overextended myself in my finances, in my friendships, in myself. And I would be just drained of energy constantly. I would be constantly showing up for other people and never for myself. Constantly giving to other people because I was so generous and I'm so giving. No, babe, you're exhausted. And I really, truly didn't understand it at the time of how much I was overextending myself and essentially self-sacrificing. And this was not just in external, this was also internally in my brain. How much I allowed other people and the world into my world, my body, my soul, my heart. How much I would allow in to me. I don't know how else to explain it. It's called, I'm calling it internal boundaries. But basically, if something happened with someone, or someone had a different opinion, or they saw the world differently to me, they have different values, different beliefs, they don't like the same things as me, or they don't see things the same way as me, instead of having an internal boundary, which would look like, okay, that person just doesn't see the world the same way that I do, and that's okay. I would be influenced by the way they think so heavily that I would be so confused, or I'd be exhausted from battling myself internally, or I would feel insecure, or I'd be looking to that person for validation, external validation. I would constantly be outsourcing my validation to other people and therefore never giving it to myself. And that was from anything in my life, from the way I would show up in friendships, my self-worth, even like my style or how I looked. How many times, I mean, there's so many women out there that I'm sure can relate to this. How many times you have asked your friends, like, does this look okay? Do I look good? And I'm really not judging anyone for being that way. I've been that way so many times in my life, and I have those moments now too. We all have our insecure, hard moments. but where it's like you cannot move through life without somebody else validating you and how you feel. And it's just, it can be a really overwhelming experience, and not just for you, but for the people around you. I've definitely had past boyfriends who I know would have been exhausted by telling me that I look pretty, or I look good that day, or the outfit looks good. I'm not talking about not allowing yourself to receive compliments. Al gives me compliments all the time. He tells me I look hot and gorgeous and cute all the time, and I love it. It feels good, right? But if you're also not telling yourself that, you're also not having that self-talk, that self-validation, you are constantly relying on other people to be validating and uplifting you, and essentially to, like, you're outsourcing how you feel constantly. And that's not a good thing, because then you're at the whim of everyone. And I know I'm speaking quite dramatically about this. I was in a dramatic place with it once upon a time. I no longer am, and I had in between bits where it wasn't that loud, but it still showed up. It still shows up now. Actually constantly, where I am having to check in with myself of like, is this a me thing? Is this a them thing? Do I really want to be doing that? Do I not? Like, whatever the circumstance is, there is always that, I guess you could say, like, observing and checking and auditing and analyzing of, is this what I need? Is this what I genuinely feel that I need right now, or whatever the case is? So you get the point. Internal boundaries are just as important, and internal boundaries and self-talk are just as important as the external boundaries, the conversations that you have with people, the decisions that you make in life, all of those things. And the boundary wheel helps you to get clear on all of those things. The other way that this would show up in my life, and this was a deep one, and I am going to actually do a deeper episode on this specific subject, because this has affected, or had affected, my life in so many deep ways. But I grew up with an abandonment wound. And I'm going to talk about wounds. That's just who I am, because I've healed a lot of wounds. I've discovered a lot of wounds. And when you realize that most people in this life have a shit ton of wounds from their childhood to things that happened through their life, once you understand that and accept that, your understanding of life and the world will completely change. And to be honest, life becomes a lot easier, and people become a lot easier to accept. I have so much more compassion for people now, because I understand trauma, and I understand conditioning, patterns, our beliefs, how our minds are molded. When you have an understanding of that, and you even just understanding it for yourself, you actually end up having more compassion for people, but you end up having more boundaries, and you have things in your life to protect your energy, because you do need to. People are walking around in this lifetime hurt. They are, and it's horrible. And I really truly wish that that wasn't the way it was, but it's just the truth of it. And unless that you are being aware of that, and I'm not talking about being defensive 24/7, but I am talking about being aware that somebody else's shit could be impacting you, and your shit could be impacting someone else. When you have that awareness and self-awareness of life, life becomes so much easier. It truly does. You can navigate life so much better. And to go back to understanding my abandonment wound and how this played out for me with people pleasing, it showed up in so many ways of like, I was so afraid to be abandoned and to not be loved because of things that happened in my childhood. And again, I'm going to save that for another episode. But because I was so afraid of essentially being abandoned, and I didn't know it like this. At the time, I had no awareness that this was playing out. This was from years of therapy and coaching and understanding this. But basically, because I was so afraid that people would leave me, I would do whatever it took to be loved. I would do whatever it took, including self-sacrificing and abandoning myself, in order to make sure that people stayed around. And that is so fucking dangerous. It is so dangerous to live a life where you are sacrificing your needs and your desires and your energy because you want to be loved and you don't want people, for fear of people leaving you and being abandoned. And this wound for me was so deep. I know how hard it is to deal with this in your life, and it's wild the ways it has shown up, and that's why it is a whole other episode, because I'm quite passionate on that subject too. But how this relates to people pleasing in particular is, as I said, people pleasing is this identity that you're generous, you're a giver, you do for others, you give to others. It's selfish to put yourself first, right? That's the belief system and the way that it comes out. So my people pleasing and my abandonment wound were like freaking sisters. It was like my identity was laced in wanting to be loved, and it would just, it honestly just fed into one another. The pattern played out because of this wound, essentially. And essentially that is what happened. This was a wound that I had, and therefore my pattern, and it was a wound my mother had as well, but it was a pattern that played out in my life because I was trying not to be abandoned, really. I was trying to do everything I could for someone to like me so that they would love me, like me, never leave me, right? And since working on this and healing this, it is just wild how this shows up, even in my day-to-day conversations, how I used to speak to people, or how I would let people speak to me, or even like how I would show up in the conversation really is completely different now because I have healed essentially this wound and worked on it. Another way how this would show up in my life is making decisions based on everyone else but me, basically. Or maybe not every decision, but a lot of decisions on other people. And it was really sneaky the way this showed up. And it's actually, this one for me was like something that social media and this podcast actually has healed this in me so much. I would struggle, like even thinking about putting my story out there and doing this and switching to and shifting to coaching. I would think about like, well, how are people going to perceive me? What are people going to think of me? They're going to judge me. You know, even the coaching world, I was very judgmental of the coaching world because it is so saturated and there is so many coaches out there that I truly don't believe are qualified or are really helping. I don't ever want to be a part of something that I'm not genuinely helping or impacting. I don't want to show up and be a coach and I don't want to do coaching and have it not be impactful and genuinely help people, and even worse, harm somebody's life. I have been at the whim of a coach who really shouldn't have been coaching. I know the responsibility of what it takes to be a coach, and I don't take that lightly. So because I know that there is this stigma with coaches of like any man and his dog can be a coach these days, right? I'm really super aware of that. And because of the fact that people do speak about that stuff sometimes, or it is an opinion or it is a judgment, I was like, oh man, I don't want to be another one of those people. What are people going to say? What is my cousin twice removed on my dad's side who I never speak to? What's she going to think of me? I don't even know who I'm talking about when I say that. But that is one example of how people pleasing and not having boundaries and living life on somebody else's terms would show up in my life. And that is one example of a million of where I would make decisions because I was afraid of being perceived a certain way, or how somebody might think of me, how someone might judge me. What will they think of me? And that because it was so uncomfortable for me to feel, and it was a lot of the times my own judgment. Now I'm like, I've shifted my mindset around coaching where I'm like, there are so many people out there who need incredible coaches like I am and going to be for other people. And I know what I am going to be able to help someone with. And I'm very passionate about that. And I'm very confident about that. And I know I'm going to do everything in my power to educate, hone my skills, make sure that somebody is safe in my own hands, right? But imagine if I didn't pursue something because I was afraid that somebody might think something poorly of me. I don't know. It's wild how this shows up. And I know that, like, I speak to my friends about this stuff all the time. I know I'm not the only one. I'm using like social media and coaching as an example. You know, you in your own life, you might never ever want to do a podcast or start a podcast or start a social media. Maybe you do, but maybe it's like I have friends, this is the last thing that they would ever want to do. Respectfully, they love that I'm doing this. They cheer me on, they support me, but this is the last thing that they would want to do. And for them though, how it shows up is like saying no to a family event or saying no to a friend's event, or saying no to something in their life because they're afraid to be perceived as a bad person, or be perceived as selfish, or be perceived as something that they know they're not, but they don't want to feel the uncomfortable feeling of having to deal with that. And I have had to deal with many interactions throughout my years of where I've put up a boundary, I've had a differing belief, I've had a differing value, a differing way of thinking, I live life on my terms, and therefore it makes somebody else uncomfortable, or it doesn't land well with someone. And yeah, they do judge you, and they don't agree with you. They don't feel good about it. And this is the thing, to go back to the validating yourself and your self-talk. There's a level of acceptance of this person is just not going to get it. And this person is maybe just not completely aligned with me, and that's okay. I know it's trendy at the moment, but it is beautiful. The Let Them theory by Mel Robbins, right? Let them think what they want about you. Let them be wrong about you. Let them be wrong about you. Let them think what they want. It is okay for them to think that way. And it is about the self-talk, the internal discussion you have with yourself of, that is how they feel, but it doesn't make me wrong. That is how they feel, and that's okay, but it doesn't mean I need to live by their ways or beliefs or standards or fears, quite honestly, because a lot of the time it's somebody else's fears. Even with my dad, I'll use an example. I love my dad. Steve Manstead is one of the best. But even when I told him about going out on my own in business consulting and essentially not being an employee anymore and having my own business and, you know, living on a contract basis, for him that was really scary. He was nervous for me doing that because he was like so used to me being on a employee salary that is quote unquote secure and would bring me a consistent income. That's another discussion for another time because that's not actually true. But it took my dad a minute to basically sit with it and go, you know, you've got this, and support me. And it's not that he wasn't supporting me, but his fears came up. Imagine if I took my dad's fears on. Now I'm building an incredible consulting business that is supporting all of this other stuff that I'm doing that lights me up so dearly. I'm working with some incredible clients and learning so much, even more about business that excites me, like truly, truly lights me up in that world as well. So imagine if I took my dad's fears on and didn't do that because he was scared that it wouldn't work out. I get that. I really do understand that. I have compassion for that fear, but it's not my own. It is not my own fear, and I'm not going to take it on. I'm not going to let it influence me. Even starting this podcast, I remember when I first started telling people, just like this way of coaching and everything, I remember telling people years ago, because I did, again, this is another episode, but I started dabbling in this world years ago, and it was very much like, I remember people feeling uncomfortable with me like posting and recording and putting things out there. I've had conversations with people where I know that they were uncomfortable with the level of information I've put out there to the public. For me, I don't give a fuck. I am an open book. I will and plan to talk about everything on this podcast in life that I believe can help somebody and that I just am passionate about talking about. I don't have an uncomfortable feeling in my body around that, right? But I know when I've spoken to people, even people so dearly close to me, it is so uncomfortable for them to be that open, and therefore their judgment and their uncomfortability comes into the conversation and they just don't get it. So I guess my point is like, this is how it shows up in your life, of where these moments with people, it is their influence, it is their values, their beliefs, their fears, and you are being influenced by that. And it is a level of self-awareness you have to have, and you develop it. It's a skill. Once you become, listening to this podcast is your first step to becoming aware of it. Now, when you're in conversations with people, when your loved one or that random stranger you tell something to doesn't give you the reaction that you either expected, wanted, or feels good, okay, that's their thing. That it doesn't land for them. It's not their thing, and that's okay. And this leads me to, I guess, my final point. I mean, there's a million ways this has shown up in my life, but one of the other, I think this bleeds into the point I was just making, is being aware of people's triggers and emotions. Again, going back to trauma, we are all walking around with our own wounds, conditioning, beliefs, patterns, and they show up in our everyday. That is what it is to be a human being. We have layers, we are complex, we have all these different patterns and conditioning that we've gathered over time. And it's like we're collecting all of these different beliefs and values. And that's why I truly do believe doing self-discovery work is one of the most important things that you can do, because when you understand yourself and you can back yourself and you understand your own needs, other people and external won't affect you in the same way. And I'm not talking about always being defensive and having your guard up with people 24/7, but it is about being protective over your heart and your soul and your energy. This has shown up for me in so many different ways, like I said, where I have either communicated a boundary or talked about something that's important to me and it hasn't been received a certain way, and it's like, it hurts. It really does hurt. And it's about having the, I guess you could say, the self-awareness to go, this is not my shit. This person doesn't understand me, or they don't understand this situation, or it's not the way they see the world. It's not what they would want to do. And that's okay, but it is not my own. And having that awareness that this is not my own shit. And even with that, when you communicate a boundary or you have a hard conversation, and that's what this requires, a lot of putting up boundaries and not people pleasing and doing things on your own terms, it comes with a lot of communication, and some of it is hard. And sometimes it won't be received that well. And that's okay. That's for the, and you know, even in my own life, I have let go of friendships or adjusted my closeness or my boundaries or my expectations with a certain friend when I have felt like, okay, this isn't as safe for me. They don't really get me here. They don't support me in the way that I really need to with this. And again, that's okay. They're on their own journey. I have compassion for them. I can feel that. But just because I have compassion does not mean I will self-sacrifice. Just because I can understand your circumstance and understand what might be coming up for you or what's difficult does not mean I'm going to self-sacrifice and not put myself and protect myself, essentially. I really am all for having compassion and love and all of that side, but you also sometimes like need to have your fire about you, and you also need to have it needs to be stern. It needs to be like, sorry, but you can't really fuck with me on this. Like, I understand that you have your shit in this, but it is not okay for you to put that onto me. And I'm not saying that I'm walking around in life having these conversations 24/7. To be honest, most of the time it's an internal thing. It is an internal moment. And then you can have the hard conversation with the person and help them to understand you understand them better, and then you can come to a place where you have this beautiful moment. And if somebody is truly your friend, if somebody truly wants to support you and get you and understand you, they will want to understand you. They will have a willingness to go, hey, I didn't understand XYZ, but I want to understand it better. And they still may not end up agreeing with you, and they might have their own feelings, beliefs, and values in the situation that don't align with yours, and that's okay. But you two can both support each other in the fact that you have differences, but you still love and support each other, and you get it. And it goes back to the boundary wheel of understanding where certain friends or people in your life sit. You know, the boundary wheel, you pick everyone from, like, you're in the middle. You are number one. And that is the way I live my life and will continue to live my life for the rest of my life. I have friends in my life who are mothers, and I love the way that they are doing motherhood and parenthood. And it is the way that I am setting myself up to do motherhood. And it is very much, you are number one, you take care of yourself, then you are able to give to your partner, to your children, and to everyone else in your life. It's the oldest saying in the book, but if you do not put the mask on you first, you will not be able to help anyone else. It's not selfish. It is not selfish to give to yourself. It's not selfish to put yourself first. And again, the irony is you end up giving to other people in a better way. And no, not all the time, because it's not normal to be giving to people 24/7. It's not normal to be giving to people most of the time. You have your life, you have your goals, you have your things going on. And you have, I'm sure, plenty of people in your life that you want to give to. And it is just about understanding and prioritizing those things. And sometimes it is going to mean that you cannot say yes to everything, and you are going to let people down, and you are going to disappoint people. And it is so okay for people in your life to feel disappointed. And what a beautiful thing that that person loves you so much that they really wanted you to be there for them in that moment or whatever it is. But it is also equally beautiful for that friend or that person or whatever it is, or for you to understand that it's just not the season, it's not the moment, it's not within your life plan right now, and that's okay. And nobody gets to decide how that looks except for you. No one gets to tell you what is too much, too little, too selfish, too selfless. That is for you to decide. And that is why, again, self-discovery is so important. And this finishes on how this has shown up in my life. And then we will be wrapping towards the end of the episode. But this goes to my point of self-discovery. Understanding yourself and your energy and your needs and your beliefs and the way you want to move in the world and the way you like to be in the world. What lights you up? What drains you? Asking yourself those questions. What drains me? When I'm naturally lit up, what am I talking about? What am I doing? What friends do I leave and I'm like, man, I could run a marathon right now? And what friends do I leave and I'm like questioning the fuck out of myself, or I feel drained, or I'm like, whoa, I felt so judged by that person, or that person just does not see the world the same way that I do. Understanding and doing this self-discovery with yourself is what is going to inform where you take back energy, where you put up boundaries, where you have hard conversations with others or with yourself. I am going to do another episode around my history and my story with friendships and relationships, because I just think that, you know, this podcast is about my story. It's also about what I believe contributes to a happy, fulfilled, satisfied life. And a lot of what I am about is how do you create a life that you feel satisfied and fulfilled in? And I believe all of these factors, from relationships to money, to your sex life, to your love life, to your business and career life, all of these different facets make up a satisfied and fulfilled life. And when you review all of those things, that is when you live in alignment, essentially, and you pick things that feel like they're the right thing for you. You get what I'm saying? Self-discovery is important, people. I feel like I've already said this, but I do just want to say this as my sort of closing statements on this subject. The price of overextending yourself and the price of not having boundaries, the price of living life on somebody else's terms is truly, truly way too rich for my blood. As in, what I give up for other people in all of the ways that I've talked about in this episode is, in my opinion, the pathway to a miserable life. It is the pathway to feeling deeply resentful with myself and other people. And I did. And if you're a passive aggressive person, this is why. Well, this could be one reason why. It shows up in passive aggressiveness. It shows up in resentment. It's really sneaky how this shows up. It shows up in hormonal conditions. It shows up in health conditions. It shows up in your money plan. It shows up in your relationship with your partner, because you need to have boundaries with your partner too. And the irony of having boundaries in your life and breaking through people pleasing and living life on your own terms, the irony of having those boundaries is that you have complete freedom. That, in my opinion, is complete mind freedom. You are living life on your own terms, no one else's, and that, in my opinion, is pure freedom. And if you are living life on other people's terms, in my opinion, that is hell for me. Honestly, that is hell on earth. And if I look back at my life and I'm like literally living life because of other people's beliefs and values and fears and influences, that to me is a very sad, unhappy life. And this is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Having these conversations, breaking through these patterns, coming to this level of self-awareness, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens by having mindfulness in each moment, having a little bit more mindfulness, a little bit more awareness when you're having conversations. And it happens over time. It's an accumulation of bit by bit, moment by moment. You start taking back your power, essentially. You stop sacrificing yourself. You start taking back your power. You also learn very quickly who are the truest of people in your life. I'm so grateful for the people who have supported me in my own people-pleasing, self-sacrificing journey. I have these friends in my life who have only ever brought this out in me more. And they've encouraged me to put myself first, to pick the things that light me up. I have this friend, there's no explanation needed. I know that the modern world wants to tell you that living this way is selfish. I personally believe that is because that person's belief of the world, they've never been taught to do this. They've never been taught to navigate this, and therefore they've never actually said no themselves to anything. They're probably most likely overextended, because anyone who actually fully understands this would support you in it. Anyone who gets this and has lived this would only ever support you. And I'm not talking about somebody who feels overextended and they know they're overextended. I'm talking about somebody who has broken through that overextending. And I guess I will just finish on saying this. If somebody cannot understand this, if somebody can't support you on this, they're probably not your person, and that's okay. It's okay to distance yourself and let that person go, or to put up boundaries, protect yourself, whatever it is, to protect your peace and keep yourself safe, because that's what this is about. And that safety, you will thrive. You will thrive in your own life by creating that safety in your life. It's not overnight that this happens. Also, you will be surprised how many people do step up for you with this when you have more of these conversations with people. The amount of conversations I had when I was going through these changes, like in a big way. I remember having a conversation with one of my best friends, Dee, who I did an episode with, last episode, actually, episode 9. And I remember when I was first talking about this with her, and she was like, so you did an audit of your friendships? And it sounded harsh. I was like, oh, that sounds so harsh. And I was like, well, yeah, I did. I did an audit of people in my life, of my needs, of the way I want to show up, of the way that I want them to show up. And where I felt necessary, I had conversations. And I was shocked at how many people received it. I was shocked at how many people exceeded what I thought that conversation was going to turn into. One of my other best friends now, that conversation has made us so much closer. And it has allowed us to understand each other better and show up for each other better. So I guess I want to finish on like a positive note, almost like as motivation. Give people a little bit more credit that they may actually surprise you and show up in a way that you're like, and they're probably like, fuck babe, I'm exhausted too. Oh my gosh, like same. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at how much somebody actually understands this, and anyone who doesn't. And again, anyone who doesn't, well, there we go. Internal boundary put up, and we allow them, we let them, and that's okay. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. This was actually very therapeutic for me to record. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that my story and the way I've navigated this maybe sparked something in you. As always, I would love to hear from you. I'm over on Instagram at Alex Manstead, and feel free to just send me a message over there and tell me how this shows up for you, because this subject, as I said, was and is deeply, deeply important to me. And I truly do believe it is a massive link in living a life that you are in love with and obsessed with. And that is what I'm all about. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved this episode, please share it with a loved one, and I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review and a comment. It really helps to support my podcast and get my message out there. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Alex Manstead. And one of my favorite things to do is have chats with people about life. Nothing is too big or too much, so please feel free to message me. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, dream big, love deeply, and live boldly.